I fed a hungry alien child. The next day, her killer mother came to my door. Once it had been a busy trade hub. Now it was a place forgotten by governments and ignored by fleets. Only those with nowhere else to go lived here. Evan Hale was one of them. He finished locking the door of his repair shop as the station lights flickered. His hands were dirty with oil and his back ached from another long shift fixing broken cargo drones. It was quiet, too quiet. He liked it that way. After the war, noise made his head hurt. Evan turned toward his small living unit, pulling his jacket tighter. The rain soaked through everything here, even metal. As he walked, a sound stopped him. A soft sound, not metal, not wind, a cry, very weak. Evan froze. The sound came again, thin and shaking, like someone trying not to be heard. He looked toward the narrow alley beside the power lines. No one used that path. It was dark, cold, and dangerous. People who went in didn't always come out. Evan sighed slowly. "Not my problem," he muttered. He took 2 steps forward. Then the sound came again. This time it was louder. Something in his chest tightened. Damn it! He turned and walked into the alley. The lights barely worked there. Shadows covered the walls. Water dripped from broken pipes. At first he saw nothing. Then he saw movement. A small shape sat against the wall, wrapped in torn fabric. It lifted its head slowly. Evan's breath caught. She was not human. Her skin had a soft blue glow, dim like a dying light. Her eyes were large and silver, reflecting fear. Her limbs were thin, too thin. She looked like a child, but not of any species Evan knew well. She tried to stand. She failed. Her body shook and she fell back with a weak sound. Evan stepped closer, careful, slow. "Hey, easy," he said quietly. The child flinched. Her hands rose as if to protect herself. She made a soft sound, half fear, half pain. Evan raised his palms. "I'm not going to hurt you." He had said those words many times in his life. This time he hoped they were enough. He noticed an empty pack beside her, torn open. No food inside, no water. She was starving. Evan swallowed. Aliens were not rare in the galaxy, but a lone alien child, injured and abandoned, was something else entirely. Rules existed for this kind of thing. Do not interfere. Do not take responsibility. Do not get involved. Rules made by people who had never seen a child dying in the rain. Evan slowly removed his jacket and held it out. The child stared at it, confused. "It's warm," he said softly. "You're cold." After a long moment, she reached for it. Her fingers were shaking. When she touched the jacket, she made a small sound, almost a sigh. Evan carefully lifted her. She was lighter than she looked, too light. He carried her back to his room. Inside, he set her down on the floor near the heater. He moved slowly, giving her space. She watched every move, her eyes never leaving him. He grabbed a nutrient bar and a water pack from his shelf. Human food could be dangerous, but this one was basic, mostly proteins and minerals, better than nothing. He crushed it, mixed it with water, and held it out. The child sniffed it. Then she drank, slowly at first, then faster. Her glow brightened as she ate. Color returned to her skin. Her breathing became steady. Evan sat against the wall, watching quietly. Minutes passed. When she finished, she looked up at him and smiled, not wide. Not strong, but real. She pointed at herself and made a soft sound. "Kale." Evan blinked. "Your name?" She nodded weakly. "Evan," he said, tapping his chest. Kale tried to repeat it. "E. Van." He smiled despite himself. She leaned back and closed her eyes, exhaustion finally winning. Within seconds, she was asleep, curled up in his jacket like it was the safest place in the universe. Evan stood there, heart heavy. "What have I done?" he whispered. He didn't know her species. He didn't know her people. And he didn't know why a child like her was alone on a dead station. But he knew one thing. She had been running. Far above the station, space twisted. A massive ship tore out of warp with a scream of distorted light. It was not a trade vessel. It was not a patrol ship. It was a warship. Its hull was dark and scarred, covered in markings that told stories of destroyed worlds. Its weapons glowed faintly, alive and waiting. Inside the command chamber, a tall figure stood silently. Her armor was black, carved with symbols of death. Her eyes burned with fury and pain. Around her, warriors knelt in fear. She was here, the figure said. Her voice was calm, but the kind of calm that came before destruction. Our child has been here. The ship's sensors flashed. A signal locked onto Outpost 12. The woman's hands clenched. I will have her back, she said, and anyone who touched her. The lights dimmed as the ship began to move. Will answer to me. Back in his small room, Evan sat awake, watching the sleeping child. She shifted slightly, pulling his jacket closer. He didn't know it yet, but by feeding her, by showing kindness when the universe showed none, he had just placed himself between humanity and something powerful enough to burn worlds. And tomorrow, someone would knock on his door. Evan did not sleep that night. He sat in the chair near the door, his back against the wall, eyes open. The small room was quiet except for the soft sound of breathing. Kale slept on the floor, wrapped in his jacket, her chest rising and falling slowly. She looked peaceful, too peaceful for a child who had clearly been running for her life. Evan kept replaying the same thought in his mind. Who were you running from? The station lights flickered again. Then everything went silent, too silent. No hum of distant engines, no buzz of power lines. Even the rain outside seemed to pause. Evan stood slowly. That was when the knock came, not loud, not violent, just 3 slow taps. Knock, knock, knock. The sound echoed through the small room like a warning bell. Kale stirred. Her eyes snapped open. Fear flooded her face. She sat up fast, shaking her head, making a soft panic sound. Her hands grabbed Evan's sleeve, tight enough to hurt. No, 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 she whispered in a broken voice. Evan's heart started pounding. He had fought in a war, he had faced death, but this felt worse. Another knock, stronger this time. The metal door vibrated. Human, a voice said from the other side. It was deep, female, cold. I know you are in there. Evan swallowed hard. He moved slowly in front of Kale, putting himself between her and the door. I don't want trouble, he called out. The voice paused, then spoke again. You have something that belongs to me. Kale whimpered. Evan clenched his fists. She's just a child, he said. She was starving, I helped her. Silence followed, then footsteps, heavy, controlled, powerful. The door shook as something leaned close to it. You fed her, the voice said softly. It was not a question. Yes, Evan answered. I did. A long pause, then the door slid open by itself. Evan stumbled back in shock. Standing in the doorway was a creature out of nightmares. She was tall, almost touching the frame. Her armor was dark and scarred, marked by battle. Her skin shimmered like molten metal beneath dim light. Her eyes burned with a deep red glow. Power rolled off her like heat from fire. Behind her, the hallway bent slightly, as if reality itself feared her presence. Kale screamed. She rushed forward, hiding behind Evan, clutching his shirt. The warrior's eyes snapped to her child. For a moment, the entire station seemed to hold its breath. Then the warrior dropped to one knee. Her massive frame bowed low. My child, she said, her voice shaking. You are alive, Kale hesitated, then slowly stepped forward. The warrior removed her helmet. Her face was fierce, scarred by war. But her eyes were full of pain. She reached out with trembling hands. Kale touched her fingers and began to cry. The warrior pulled her into a tight embrace, holding her like something precious. Evan watched, frozen. This was no monster. This was a mother. Minutes passed before the warrior looked up at Evan again. Her expression hardened, but not with anger. With you, she said, she is alive. Evan nodded slowly. She was starving, alone, I couldn't leave her. The warrior stood. I am called Vrisha, she said, warlord of the Cars. Evan felt his stomach drop. He had heard that name before. The Cars were feared across systems. Warriors who never lost, conquerors, executioners, and this woman was their leader. Vrisha studied him carefully. My enemies slaughtered my fleet, she said. They hunted my child to break me. She escaped. I followed her trail across stars, her gaze sharpened. You could have sold her, used her, feared her. I didn't, Evan replied. Vrisha stepped closer. You fed her. Yes. You sheltered her. Yes. You stood between her and me. Evan did not look away. Yes. The room felt like it might collapse from the pressure of her presence. Then something unexpected happened. Vrisha lowered her head, a sign of respect. In my culture, she said, that makes you kin. Evan blinked. What? You protected my blood, she continued. For that your life is bound to mine. Her eyes burned. Anyone who harms you now dies. A sudden explosion rocked the station. Alarms screamed to life. The lights went red. Vrisha turned sharply. They found us, she growled. Outside, weapons fire echoed. Kale clung to Evan again. Stay behind me, Evan said, though his voice shook. Vrisha smiled grimly. You have courage, human. The wall exploded inward. Armored soldiers stormed through, mercenaries with heavy rifles and glowing blades. Target acquired, one shouted. They opened fire. Vrisha moved faster than thought. She caught one soldier by the throat and crushed him against the wall. Another fired. She deflected the shot with her armor and hurled a blade that cut him down. Evan grabbed Kale and dove behind a table. Blaster fire burned through the room. The station shook. Vrisha roared, a sound that felt like thunder. Within seconds the attackers were gone, dead. Smoke filled the air. Silence returned. Evan stared. She turned to him. They will keep coming, she said. You are now marked. Evan looked at Kale, then back at Vrisha. So what happens now? The warlord stepped closer. Now, she said, you come with us. Evan's heart raced. I'm not a soldier. You are something rarer, she replied. You are human. She knelt so their eyes met. And my daughter trusts you. Kale squeezed his hand. Vrisha stood. My enemies will burn worlds to take her back, she said. If you stay here, you will die. She extended her hand. Come with us. Outside, her warship loomed over the station, casting a massive shadow. Evan looked once more at the life he had known, then at the child who had changed everything. He took her hand and stepped forward. The warship loomed like a mountain over Outpost 12. Its dark hull reflected the flickering red lights of the station, and the engines hummed with the power of a small star. For most species, the sight alone would have inspired fear. But Evan Hale was human. Humans were not known for giving up. Vrisha's massive hand remained on his shoulder as Kale clutched his other arm. The child's silver eyes were wide with awe and fear. Evan could feel her heartbeat through her tiny grip. Are you ready? Vrisha asked. Her voice was soft now, almost careful. Evan swallowed. I don't know, but I have to be. The boarding ramp extended slowly. Evan felt the hum of the engines through his boots. This ship, massive as it was, carried warriors who had conquered entire star systems. And here he was, a single human walking into their world. He took a deep breath and stepped aboard. Inside the ship, everything was alien. The walls shimmered with a faint metallic glow. Panels of light floated in midair, showing star maps, sensor readings, and enemy positions. Warriors moved like shadows, silent and deadly, yet their eyes followed him. Kale clung to his hand as they moved through the corridor. She whispered softly, "They dangerous." Evan nodded. "Yes, but we can't let them win." They entered a large command room. A massive viewport showed the battlefield below, the station burning, mercenary ships scattering in all directions. At the center, Vrisha led them to a raised platform where an alien council waited. These beings were tall, armored, and merciless in appearance. They looked down on him, the human, with curiosity and disbelief. "You brought a human," one of the council members hissed. "Do you not understand what he is? Fragile, weak, disposable." Vrisha's voice cut through the tension like steel. "He is not fragile. He protected my child when even the strongest of you failed to do so." Evan felt the council's eyes on him. He straightened his back despite the fear curling in his stomach. I did what was right," he said. His voice was calm, steady, "even if it meant standing against you." The council laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Do you not see your place, human?" the tallest one said. "This is not your fight. Step aside or be destroyed." Evan looked at Kale. Her small hand squeezed his, reminding him why he was here. "No," he said firmly. "I am not stepping aside. She is not just a child. She is life, and I will protect her no matter the cost." Silence fell. The council had not expected such defiance. Vrisha stepped closer. "He is human," she said, "and humans, they fight when others would run. They survive when others would fall. You see it now." The council exchanged uneasy glances. Evan realized something then. Humans were underestimated, not just feared for their strength, but for their unpredictability, for their courage, for their refusal to bow even when the odds were impossible. The calm shattered with a sudden alarm. Red lights flashed. "Incoming!" a warrior shouted. Through the viewport, mercenary ships swarmed toward them. Hundreds of vessels, armed to destroy everything in their path. They were relentless. Vrisha's warriors drew their weapons, ready for battle. But Evan knew something different would be required. Humans did not rely only on strength. They relied on cunning, ingenuity, and the will to survive. He moved quickly toward a console. His hands were steady as he began analyzing the systems. He did not understand every alien symbol, but he did understand logic, patterns, weakness. "Evan," Kale asked, her voice trembling. "I need a few minutes," he said. "Stand back." The council watched in disbelief as the human typed and pressed, redirected power and rerouted shields. He wasn't a warrior. He was a mechanic, an engineer. But here, in the midst of monsters and warships, he became something else, the human who could change the tide of battle. The ships outside fired. Lasers struck the hull, but Evan had already redirected the shields to focus on weak points. Sparks flew, alarms blared, but the human kept working. Vrisha leaned close. "What are you doing?" "Making sure your enemies regret attacking us," Evan said. Minutes passed like hours. Then finally the defense system engaged. Energy fields pulsed along the hull. Alien ships tried to break through. One by one they exploded, their weapons overcharged against shields they couldn't penetrate. The council gasped. Warriors froze. Vrisha's eyes widened in surprise and pride. Evan stepped back, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Done," he said simply. For the first time, silence filled the room. Then a voice whispered. "How?" The council member could not believe what they had seen. A human alone had turned the tide of a battle even veteran alien warriors had feared. Vrisha placed her hand on Evan's shoulder. "You see," she said softly, "humans are different. They do not follow fear. They do not bow. They survive because they refuse to die." Evan looked at Kale. She smiled through her tears. She trusted him. And in that moment he understood something bigger than himself. Courage was contagious, and hope could survive even in the darkest places. Hours later, the battle was over. The mercenaries had fled or been destroyed. The station below was damaged but intact, and the warship, Vrisha's warship, remained untouchable. Vrisha turned to Evan. "You could have died," she said. Evan shrugged. "I could have, but I didn't. We survived. That's what counts." Kale ran to him, hugging his leg tightly. "You saved us," she said. He smiled, exhausted but proud. "We saved each other." The council approached, hesitant but respectful. "You are extraordinary human," the tallest one said. "We underestimated your species. Never again." Evan nodded. "Humans have always been underestimated, and we've always proven them wrong." Vrisha placed a hand on his shoulder, then looked at the council. "He is no longer just a human," she said. "He is protector of my bloodline. Anyone who threatens him or my child will face my wrath." The council bowed, some reluctantly, some out of genuine respect. Evan realized then how fragile peace was, but also how strong humans could be, not because of weapons or numbers, but because of will. Because even a single human in the right moment could change the outcome of worlds. Days passed aboard the ship. Evan worked alongside Vrisha's engineers, improving systems, strengthening defenses, and preparing Kale for the future. The child recovered her strength quickly, her silver eyes bright with life again. And Evan learned something deeper. Humans, his species, were feared not just for physical strength but for something more: heart, courage, ingenuity. The ability to stand when everything around you told you to fall. Kale looked up at him one evening, her small hand in his. "Will they come back?" she asked. "They might," he said, "but we'll be ready, together." Vrisha, standing nearby, nodded. With humans like him, even the strongest enemies must think twice. Evan looked out at the stars through the massive viewport. They were infinite, cold, and dangerous. But he knew one truth: humanity survived because they refused to bow, because even when alone they could rise. And he, a single human, had just proven it to monsters, mercenaries, and even warlords. Kale smiled up at him, and Evan felt the weight of his responsibility. Protecting her was not just an act of kindness. It was proof that humans could be more than small, fragile creatures in a big, cold galaxy. They were dangerous when needed, brave when feared, unstoppable when hope remained. And for the first time in his life, Evan realized he had not just saved a child. He had reminded the galaxy why humanity could never be ignored.